Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today into a true cinematic classic. It's a Wonderful Life. But we're going beyond just those heartwarming holiday vibes, and love from this 1946 film starring James Stewart and Donna Reed.
Yeah, this movie's way more than just a Christmas favorite. We'll unpack why it consistently ranks so high on all those best films of all time lists, even decades later.
Exactly. Get ready to uncover those hidden layers, like what does Pottersville really represent, and why is it so unsettling?
It's fascinating how It's a Wonderful Life blends holiday cheer with some really profound stuff. Life, purpose, the choices we make. Honestly, it can make you laugh, cry, and kind of reevaluate your own path all at the same time.
It really does. And that contrast between Bedford Falls and Pottersville is a perfect place to start, I think.
Yeah.
You have this charming, close-knit town on one hand, and then this bleak, almost dystopian version of it on the other.
It's like a visual representation almost of what happens when greed and self-interest just take over an entire community. Like Pottersville is showing us a world where George Bailey, the heart of Bedford Falls, never existed, and the ripple effects are kind of terrifying.
It really makes you think, like, what impact do our own individual choices have on the world around us? Are we each shaping a Bedford Falls with our actions or a Pottersville?
Hmm.
Something to think about.
Hmm.
But speaking of choices, we got to talk about George Bailey himself. This guy is practically the embodiment of selflessness, constantly sacrificing his dreams to help others.
He really is. I mean, he saves his brother, he runs the family business, always puts the town's needs before his own. It's a whole string of incredibly selfless acts.
But it definitely takes a toll on him, right? He clearly struggles with feeling trapped and unfulfilled at times.
That's the internal conflict that makes George so relatable, I think. We've all felt that pull between what we aspire to do and our obligations to, well, everyone else. George's journey isn't about him achieving some big, flashy ambition. It's about him finding meaning and purpose in everyday acts of kindness and responsibility.
And that's where Mary, his wife, comes in. She's not just a supportive spouse. She's a pillar of strength for George, constantly reminding him of his worth and the good he does for others.
Exactly. She represents the power of love and partnership when facing life's challenges. And then there's Clarence, the guardian angel, so endearingly imperfect.
Oh yeah, Clarence. He's sent to help George when he's at his absolute lowest, actually contemplating ending his life.
That's pretty heavy stuff for what's considered a holiday movie, but Clarence's presence injects so much humor and warmth into the story.
And he does it while still being a relatable character. I mean, he's not some all-knowing, perfect being. He's still learning, trying to earn his wings, which makes him very human.
He's still got a lot to learn. Like, remember when he's frantically searching for his ID while introducing himself to George? Comedy gold?
Oh, for sure. And that humor prevents the film from becoming too sentimental or preachy. It lets us grapple with those difficult themes like despair and suicide without being completely overwhelmed by them.
Right, and then comes that incredible moment when Clarence shows George what the world would be like if he'd never been born. That alternate reality, Pottersville, is such a powerful storytelling device.
So powerful. It forces George and us as the viewers to confront this profound question: what's the value of a single life? And It's a Wonderful Life answers that question beautifully. It's immeasurable.
It really is. It argues that even small acts of kindness can have these huge ripple effects, impacting countless lives in ways we might never realize.
It's a message of hope and the interconnectedness of all of us.
Absolutely. And that realization is what leads to George's redemption. He goes from feeling like a failure to understanding that he's actually lived a life full of meaning and purpose, even if it wasn't the life he originally planned for himself.
It's a really beautiful character arc, and it speaks to the film's lasting appeal, that reminder that we all have the power to make a difference, even if we don't see it right away.
It's true. Our actions, our choices, they have consequences that go far beyond our own lives.
It's bigger than just us. And that brings us to another key element of the film: community. It's a Wonderful Life really drives home the idea that we're not meant to go through life alone.
It takes a village, right? And Bedford Falls itself almost feels like a character in the movie. It embodies those values of kindness, compassion, connection.
You're so right. It's such a stark contrast to the isolation and individualism that we see in Pottersville.
Exactly. And that contrast highlights the dangers of a society that prioritizes individual gain over everything else. The movie makes a powerful argument for community and shared responsibility.
And it does all of this while being so masterfully made. I mean, Frank Capra's direction, James Stewart's performance. We need to talk about those.
Oh, absolutely. Those are essential to the film's success. But before we get into all of that, what about It's a Wonderful Life has resonated most with you personally?
It's a tough question. I mean, there's so many layers to this movie,
Mm,
but I think what gets me every time is how it manages to be both deeply moving and incredibly entertaining. It's a film that sticks with you.
I completely agree. It really makes you think about your own life, the choices you make, your impact on the world around you.
And I think that's a huge part of its enduring legacy.
Mm.
It not only entertains, but also inspires us to be better, to be kinder, to be more connected to each other.
Couldn't said it better myself. It's a Wonderful Life is a reminder that we can all make a difference, even in the smallest ways. And sometimes that's the most wonderful thing of all.
Yeah, you mentioned Capra's direction, like his use of close-ups, especially on James Stewart's face. Oh my gosh, yes, those close-ups are so powerful. You can just feel, I don't know, the weight of the world on George's shoulders, especially in those moments of despair.
Totally. Capra really knew how to use those close-ups, focusing on the actor's eyes. And it lets the audience connect directly with George's raw emotion, pulling us deeper into his internal struggle.
It's so effective. And speaking of George's struggles, we can't forget about Henry F. Potter, the film's antagonist.
Oh, Potter, he's the perfect embodiment of greed, everything George is fighting against.
Yeah, he's a great villain, but he's complex too. It's not like he's just some one-dimensional bad guy, twirling his mustache.
Right. He represents something very real, that relentless pursuit of wealth and power, no matter who gets hurt along the way.
Exactly. He's always lurking, trying to undermine George and take over Bedford Falls. Like, remember when he tempts George with that high-paying job offer, trying to lure him away from the building and loan?
Such a pivotal scene. It shows just how manipulative Potter can be. He knows George has unfulfilled dreams, so he dangles this promise of travel and excitement, hoping to exploit him.
But George, he resists. He realizes that path isn't for him. He chooses Bedford Falls, chooses to fight for what he believes in, even if it means sacrificing his own dreams.
And that choice is what ultimately leads to his redemption.
Powerful message there, right? True fulfillment doesn't come from worldly success, but from living a life that aligns with your values.
It really makes you think, would George have actually been happy if he'd taken Potter's offer? I mean, would he have found that fulfillment in a life of wealth, but, moral compromise?
That's the question the film leaves us with, isn't it? And that alternate reality
Hmm.
with Pottersville, it's not just some random plot device.
Right. It reflects real anxieties people had at the time.
Pottersville embodies this fear many had after the war, that unbridled capitalism would turn communities into cold, transactional places, stripped of all the warmth and connection you see in Bedford Falls.
Mm.
It's a scary thought for sure. But the film offers an antidote to that fear community. It's a reminder that it's not just about our individual choices, but about coming together, supporting each other, recognizing we're all connected.
And that's beautifully illustrated in that climactic scene when the whole town rallies around George. They pool their money to save the building and loan, and ultimately George himself. Powerful stuff.
Oh, I cry every time. It speaks to that deep human need to belong, to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, to know we're not alone in our struggles.
It's true. It's a Wonderful Life reminds us that even when things seem hopeless, there's always hope. And often that hope comes from unexpected places, kindness from strangers, love from family and friends, the bonds of community.
Speaking of unexpected, we have to talk about Clarence getting his wings. Such a joyous moment.
It's the perfect culmination of his journey. He starts off as this bumbling angel, unsure of himself, his purpose. But by helping George, he finds his own redemption, showing that we all have the potential for growth and change, even angels.
And that bell ringing, signifying Clarence finally earning his wings' perfect touch, adds another layer of magic to that heartwarming ending.
Right. It's a reminder that even small acts of kindness can have these huge ripple effects, not just on others, but on ourselves, too. We all have the power to make a difference.
I love that. But it's not all sunshine and roses in this movie, is it?
Right.
It's a Wonderful Life. Doesn't shy away from the darkness, despair, thoughts of suicide, the potential for darkness within us all.
It's true. The film acknowledges that even the best of us experience doubt, fear, and those moments of despair.
And that's what makes it so relatable. There are no easy answers or simple solutions. It shows life in all its messiness, its complexity, the highs and the lows, and the triumphs and the tragedies.
Yeah, it's a complex movie for sure. And it's interesting how it manages to balance those darker elements with, a sense of hope and that ultimately heartwarming ending. But I want to talk about some of the symbolism woven throughout the film. Like even the name Bedford Falls itself feels significant. It does, doesn't it? Bedford, I mean, it kind of suggests a bedrock, a foundation, right? Hinting at the town's stability, the values it represents.
Yeah, I see that.
And falls, well, that could be interpreted in a couple of ways. There are the literal waterfalls that George and Mary almost jump into, which, represents danger and despair.
Right.
But maybe also falls could refer to the challenges, the setbacks that life throws at us.
I love that interpretation. It adds another layer to those scenes at the bridge. Speaking of bridges, they seem to pop up a lot in the movie, almost like a recurring motif.
Definitely. Bridges often symbolize connections or transitions, even choices. And when you think about George's encounters with bridges, they mark these key moments of decision, moments of change in his life, right? He's got to choose his path, often between what he wants and his responsibilities to others.
It all ties back to that theme of choices, the ripple effects they create.
Exactly.
And another scene that always gets me is when George is in that bar, just desperate, and he prays, he cries out, "Help me, God." It feels like such a turning point.
Oh, yeah. That scene is so raw, so emotional. It shows George's vulnerability. And what's interesting is that right after that, Clarence, his guardian angel, appears. Coincidence? Maybe. But it definitely adds to the weight of that prayer.
It makes you think about those times in our own lives
Mhm.
when we're reaching out, for help, for guidance. Maybe we have our own Clarence moments, those times when help comes from unexpected sources.
Mm.
But we can't talk about It's a Wonderful Life without acknowledging, the historical context. It came out in 1946, right after World War II.
Very important point. I mean, that post-war period was a time of huge change. So much hope, but also a lot of uncertainty. Soldiers were coming home, trying to adjust to civilian life, and many were dealing with economic hardship, disillusionment.
And It's a Wonderful Life offered this message of hope, resilience at just the right time, reminding people about the importance of community, the value of ordinary lives, and, finding joy in the simple things. It was like a balm for a nation still reeling from the war.
I think you're right. That focus on small town values, the importance of family, the idea that each life has meaning, all of that really resonated with people who were just looking for, a sense of normalcy, a sense of purpose after years of sacrifice.
It really shows how powerful stories can be, how they can transcend time, offering comfort and inspiration across generations. So as we wrap up this deep dive into It's a Wonderful Life, I have to ask, what do you think is its most enduring legacy?
That's a tough one. But for me, I think it's the film's ability to remind us what truly matters. It's not about wealth or fame or these grand ambitions. It's about the connections we make, the love we share, how we impact others' lives. It's about appreciating the wonderful life we already have, even when things are tough.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that message is just as relevant today as it was back then. It's a call to appreciate those simple joys, to cherish our communities, to remember we all have the power to make a difference.
Absolutely. It's a Wonderful Life isn't just a film. It's a reminder, an invitation to live more fully, more intentionally, and more connected to the people around us.
Well said. And to all our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for this timeless classic. If you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch it again. Savor those details and let that message of hope, love, and community really sink in.
And never forget, no man is a failure who has friends. Thanks for joining us on this journey.